Hey everyone, you're listening to Superwomen. Today's guest is Amy Shoenthal, a USA Today bestselling author of The Setback Cycle, How Defining Moments Can Move Us Forward. She is also an incredible journalist, writer, and has contributed to Entrepreneur Magazine, Forbes. She has a viral TED Talk about the setback cycle itself. What is the setback cycle? Well, tune in to find out. But let me just sum it up for you. Those moments that you think I'm going backwards in my life or in my career are actually preparing you to be slingshot into greatness. And we get into why. Take a listen. Do you ever see a successful woman on your feed or in a magazine and think, wow, it must be nice to have it so easy? Well, think again. Behind that glossy cover or smiling face is a ton of hard work, countless failures, and endless learning experiences. I'm Rebecca Minkoff, and I'm here to tell you that success isn't a walk in the park. It takes grit, resilience, and a willingness to take risks. That's why I created Superwomen, a podcast that peels back the varnish and gets into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to make it as a woman in today's world. From luminaries and game changers to women you've never heard of but should, this podcast is here to inspire you to take your next leap, no matter how daunting it may seem. We'll explore the sacrifices these women have made, the highs and lows they've experienced, and the lessons they've learned along the way. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn from some of the most successful women out there, join me on Superwomen. Together, we'll uncover the stories behind the successes and prove that with hard work, determination, and a little bit of luck, anything is possible. Amy, round two. For those tuning in, Amy and I had an incredible conversation. The studio lost the file, and here we are today. We're back.
We're back. You could say setbacks lead to something better.
We had a setback. We did. So you are a best-selling author, writer, speaker. I mean, your accolades, whether it's Forbes, Harvard Business Review, Entrepreneur, Fast Company, we could go on. You wrote a book called The Setback Cycle, which I think all of us have huge setbacks. I'm confidentially in a huge one right now that I will not talk about until later. But I would love, first of all, for you to sort of share what made you aware of this cycle and then get into how it works and how people can take the advice from you.
Of course. So as a journalist, I get to interview lots of really incredible people like yourself and Allie and tons of founders and executives from all types of industries who have very different journeys. And in my work over the past decade or so, I started to notice that in every interview, as people were telling me about their career journey or the path that they took to create their business, the really brilliant idea that they came up with seemed to always be born of some sort of setback. And I didn't come across that word until much later as I was digging into trying to figure out what this common theme was that I kept seeing. And when you do something enough, you just start to notice trends and patterns. And this is what I kept seeing in all my interviews. So I said, all right, if everyone kind of goes through some bad stuff and then emerges with this sense of clarity and innovation and brilliance and success, what playbook are they using? Like, do they all have some sort of step-by-step process that they go through if everything seems to look like the same pattern? And where's the playbook and how can I get the playbook so that I can emerge with a sense of creativity and brilliance like all these people I'm talking to have? Like, this seems like a thing we could all use. But I couldn't find it anywhere. I read tons of articles and academic papers and business psychology books. And I found hints of it here and there, but nothing really seemed to touch on the trend that I was seeing, this pattern I was seeing. And then I started talking to scientists and psychologists and executive coaches. And I said, is this a thing? What, do we have a name for this thing that I'm seeing? And then I came across the definition of a setback, which is the dictionary definition of a setback is a reversal or check in progress. So it's when you're building something, you're on a path and moving forward, and then you're unexpectedly bumped backwards. And that's different from an obstacle or a challenge or a problem, right? That you have to navigate through. It's truly moving forward and then going in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things that can contribute to these setbacks, but at the end of the day, the thing all setbacks have in common is that they can pave the way for reinvention, for success, for innovation. Because if you think about it, when everything falls apart, you've got nowhere to go but up. Or if you lose your job or you break up with a business partner, it's time to do that new thing that you always thought maybe one day, like that day is today, is the day you go through the setback. And so I went on a 3-year journey and came up with a whole framework, 4 phases that help guide people through this inevitable human experience.
As I was preparing to talk to you again, I kept thinking about the setbacks I've had and wrestling with the fact that I had someone within my company, this was years ago, like basically almost single white female me. And
I just had like a panic.
or I had another woman like try and like erase me from my own company, or most recently, housewives, right? All these apparent setbacks that when you're in it, it's the worst thing that you've ever experienced. And you're kind of like, how did I even get here? And then I look back and I'm like, but the growth and what came of that, it's a mind fuck. That's the word I'm looking for. It's a mind fuck because you're like, this was terrible. I never want to experience this again. But now look at what happened.
Yeah.
And have you seen that over and over again? And does your framework help someone figure out almost like that bungee cord or the whatever this
is? It's a slingshot. It's a slingshot. If you think about the visual of a slingshot,
yeah,
the thing that is propelled forward needs to first be pulled backwards.
Yep.
And it's the same. So this is actually scientific. This is what happens in our brains when we go through a setback. You think of things like a dopamine hit that you're chasing. You're chasing the reward. You're chasing the success. You're chasing the thing the goal that you've set, whatever it may be. And that is something you think will be rewarding. That's kind of how humans operate. But when things don't go well, when you don't get the reward, when you have the dopamine dip, that's actually the thing that rewires our brain and gives us the sort of reprogramming. So I hear it really scientific if you want. There's your brain has this command center called the basal ganglia, and information that you glean during whatever experience you're having. So information gleaned during past experience is going to dictate how you make decisions in the future.
Right.
It's straightforward. You know this. But what happens during a setback is you can't sort of apply the same, automatic response that you can't be on autopilot. You can't do things the way you've always been doing them. You are forced to do things differently. And when you're forced to do things differently, that's when you get creative. That's what really paves the way for innovation, if you think about it. And when I talk about this with people, it really does shine a light on their own life experiences because, again, it's how our brains work. And that's why it's only really in hindsight that you can see how that setback set the stage for your growth, your path forward, the place you're at now. But it's really hard to understand that when you're in that really low moment.
How do you get people to recognize that low moment? I recognized it, but some people don't. Like I just was with someone last night who didn't recognize it at all.
Oh my God. I get so many people asking me like, how do I wake my friend up from her setback? A lot of times I talk to a lot of women around, between 40 and 60. And a lot of people are like, I want to get my friend out of this relationship, or she's going through a divorce. Like, how do I help her through it? Unfortunately, you can't wake someone else up from their setback. You can ask guiding questions that will hopefully help them get there. But if someone's not ready to wake up, they're not ready. I do have something, as I kind of went through the process of figuring out what this cycle could look like, I realized that there's a whole phase that you have to go through before you can even start working through the setback, which is establish. So I call the first phase of the setback cycle the establish phase. Process, the beginning of the process is really just acknowledging the moment you're in and waking yourself up if you've been kind of sleepwalking through a setback. A lot of us do that. We go on autopilot, we coast, we know there's something better for us, but it's sort of just easier to stay the course. And you see this so much with relationships, with jobs. Everyone knows someone who stayed in a relationship or stayed in a job for way too long and knew they should get out, but were just too afraid to do so.
Right. Did you, in seeing this pattern with all of the amazing entrepreneurs you've interviewed, did you experience your own setback?
I think that subconsciously, I was drawn to the stories of really accomplished people who had gone through setbacks because at the time I started writing the book, I was in the middle of my own career setback. I am one of those people who stayed at a job too long, even though it wasn't quite serving me anymore. And my story is the story of millions of women who were just sidelined after coming back from maternity leave. It's a very common story. It's also a very subtle setback. It's not one of those, bonk you over the head, life-changing, dramatic, like you're fired, your business went under, your partner left you. Like those are very clear.
Mm-hmm.
But mine wasn't as clear because there were really no villains in my story. No one was doing anything malicious. Everyone was making the best decisions they could with the information they had. Unfortunately, that left me without, as much responsibility at work as I had prior to having a baby, which is the
Yep.
story of so many people. And when I came out with the book, it was really funny. I have some really well-known people in there, some people who did incredible things under like terrible circumstances. I have really big dramatic stories of really high profile people. And I thought that would be what everyone was drawn to. But what everyone wanted to talk about when I came out with the book was my story because it was just relatable.
Right.
I thought mine was like a tiny little blip that I just had to kind of include because it was relevant to why I went through the process of figuring this out. But that's what everyone wanted to talk about, which was it was so surprising to me. But the insight was people want the relatable thing, not just the big sexy thing.
Yeah, I think most people can 100% more identify with what you went through than these titans who only a few people can experience their setbacks. They're like, "Oh, cry me a river about your setback."
I know. But it does go to show you that, again, even when there's no one doing anything malicious, when you're sort of happily, with a smile on your face, walking into your own setback, even if you create it yourself, like it's still a setback and it's still something that you can work your way out of. And you now have the tools to recognize it, acknowledge it, and start to, process it.
First off, everyone should read the book because you'll obviously have a big awareness of that and maybe be more like your antennas will be more tuned to the setback you might not or might not be in or going into. But in terms of like, where do you go do you teach the workshop online? Okay.
I am in the process of creating a course for people to do it themselves. So it's like an expansion of the book. But what I do right now is I coach people through the setback cycle, either one-on-one or I do group cohorts every season. Right now, I'm setting up my spring cohort. I don't know when this is going to air, but there will probably be a fall one as well. And I guide people. It's a 6-week program. We meet once a week for 6 weeks. I take them through some action items within the session, and then I give them some action items to take with them into their week, and then we'll review it again when we meet. And so it's sort of like a 6-week setback boot camp, and a lot of people take it after being laid off. And surprisingly, a lot of people come to me when they're about to start a new job because they sort of want to prepare for the challenges that they're going to face, for getting onboarded into a new role, and also just for establishing themselves in their new company, building influence among the stakeholders that they're going to be meeting for the first time. And it's interesting because I also do thought leadership and strategic positioning and marketing for executives. And so I kind of tie a little bit of that into the setback cohort. And but yeah, it's like a nice 6-week program that I take people through. I was doing a lot of one-on-one coaching, and when people are laid off from their job, they kind of just need a little more hand-holding through the process. So that's what I've created. And yeah, that's what I have. And then I do corporate workshops. And so I go to companies and I help a lot of teams who have been impacted by layoffs because nobody really talks about the people left behind. Like when there are mass layoffs, which there have been just so many over the past few years, especially the past few months, there's so much uncertainty in the workplace. And teams have been bringing me in to help motivate and give clarity to people whose coworkers have been laid off, whose roles have now expanded because they've had to take on the responsibilities of three different people, and their job looks nothing like it did when they first started a couple years ago. And so helping give clarity to people who have gone through that type of setback is something that seems to be really resonating. And I tailor a lot of my corporate workshops to folks who are in that position.
I think, and this won't be in the edit, you should offer like a subscription to corporations where they have you on retainer, and when they do the layoffs, you come in and you do it for the people that got laid off and the people that are left.
That would be wonderful.
Right?
Let's manifest. Let's put that into that. You know what I mean? That would be great because
Yeah, they
frankly, for
need it because even when we had to do a small amount of layoffs, we had to lay off 3 people. I was like, I'll write you the letter of recommendation. Like it wasn't because these people did something wrong. It was like a consolidation of different roles. And I was like, I'm the one on LinkedIn trying to help you and make the introduction. And it's just like they're all experiencing a setback. But if they had, if in larger companies they had a you come in, I mean, that would be great.
a lot of people get a budget when they get a severance package, like a budget for professional coaching. So I've gotten some of that, but not in any sort of ongoing way. It's really just like individuals coming to me and being like, I have, $1,200 allowance. I'm going to put it towards your 6-week cohort. I'm like, okay.
Right. Yep. I love that. So let's go back to your setback. You said it's something that a ton of women experience coming back from mat leave. You're given just a little bit less. What was your action item in that moment? Were you like, I'm going to fight for more, or peace, I'm out?
I didn't recognize it in the moment.
Okay.
I think that's the thing that's really relatable. I wasn't like the victim of maternity leave discrimination or anything really apparent like that. I didn't come back and they said, stay there, like, don't do anything, let's give you kid gloves. Like, no one said anything to me. They were like, okay, we're going to help you. We're going to all figure it out together. Oh, you ran 3 accounts. We'll let your replacement stay on to those 2 and you can still run the one. When you're a senior vice president at a company, like going from 3 big accounts to 1 account is a problem, And again, everyone's doing this out of what they think is right for the business. And they want to give these people who had replaced me, who were very, very talented, we wanted to give them all the opportunity to continue doing the work they had done. But there was, it wasn't malicious, but it was thoughtless. And it was like, what about the person who did all the work leading up to it for 5 years and ran these accounts? So it was like, I had spent 5 years climbing a mountain.
Yep.
Maternity leave. And it was only like 12 weeks. I wasn't gone for that long. It was not a long maternity leave. I came back and I just had to climb the mountain again because I had gotten bumped back down again.
Yeah.
And so I guess really to answer your question, I didn't just sit around and say, well, I guess this is the situation. I said, okay, let me go build something else. Let me go figure out what else I can contribute. I have to go prove myself. I have to prove my value. I have to prove that I still deserve to be respected in the workplace, even though I'm a mom now. And so the fact that I had to prove myself and I felt like it was sort of on me to do, like, these are the subtle setbacks that people experience without even realizing it because it was so, so, so subtle. And it was not dramatic and it was not hit you over the head. I mean, it took me, I remember in our first conversation, what woke me up, right? I always say you have to wake up from your setback. And I have a whole alarm clock exercise in the book that people can use to wake themselves up if they think they're in one. My alarm clock was actually one of my coworkers. Her name is Carolina. And she said to me, you are a great leader and they are preventing you from leading. And I was like, wait, what? You see this too? Like, this is not just me thinking that, like, this isn't just in my head. Like, other people see this. And she was like, yes, I didn't, she didn't say it for another couple months, but she kind of woke me up and was like, this is actually happening to you. This is not okay. And she left the company because she was like, I want to have children one day. And I don't see that going too well if I stay here. And I was like, oh my God, not only did I just kind of let it happen to myself and sort of just trudge along, I set a terrible example for the women who are coming after me. So I mean, it was pretty heavy. It was a lot. But it didn't happen all at once. It was really, really subtle, small steps that really led to my setback. But like I said, I think that's what attracted me to some of these stories. And when when an ambitious woman is sidelined at work, she puts her energy elsewhere. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really not a coincidence that I started interviewing more and more people and putting a lot of attention towards my little journalism side hustle and writing more and more articles and telling really incredible stories, and then being asked to speak on panels and on stages and getting a little bit more visibility from my articles and my speaking. And that led to a book deal, and that led to all kinds of other opportunities. And by the time I unsurprisingly got laid off from that job, I was like, I had a whole consulting business because I had built that up on the side. I had my book coming out about career setbacks. And like it was just sort of, I had used my subtle setback to set the foundation for my next chapter. And now I'm basically on a mission to help other people do the same thing.
It's almost like you could help people enjoy the misery because you know it's going to lead to greatness.
I don't know if I'm going to help them enjoy the misery, but I'm going to help them work through it so that it can lead to greatness. But I'm not sure if we get to an enjoyment until further down the road.
Yeah, yeah. No, a lot of hindsight and some counseling. I
Exactly.
certainly needed it.
Exactly.
Um, so what would you say is a first step for someone listening? Like, I think I might be in a setback. What do I do? Buy the book?
I mean, obviously by the book, but what I tell people to do if they think they're in a setback is see if your alarm clock is ringing. And if you are a person who journals, or if you're not a person who journals, but you write a to-do list every day, add these two questions into your to-do list. What am I energized by? And what am I disengaged with? And answer those questions based on the activities you have laid out that day. Do you have a particular meeting that you're, feeling icky about? Do you have a particular task that you really don't want to do? Track this over a period of time. Answer these questions like 3 to 5 days a week over a month, 2 months, 3 months, and then go back and look at your answers. I promise you, you will find patterns that you didn't realize were there. You'll find that maybe you're not as energized by certain things as you thought you were. And maybe you'll find that you're actually disengaged with things you thought you liked, because these
Mm-hmm.
things can change. That's the thing. I do this myself. And the things I'm disengaged with will all of a sudden be projects that I'm excited about a few months later. So, I mean, it's just like ambition. Your ambition shifts with your energy, and things that you're excited about your excitement will wane. And you might just want to see how you can potentially recalibrate your day, your week, your month, your role to adjust to do more of the things that you're energized by and fewer of the things that you're disengaged with. And people do this exercise, and a lot of them obviously say, okay, I thought I was in a setback and I definitely am. I'm going to start to work through the cycle. And other people come to me and they say, I did the alarm clock exercise. I thought I was really disengaged with my job, but doing this exercise made me realize I'm actually still quite energized by it, and I'm actually still very excited about it. So it can do both. It can be a regrounding in, getting yourself motivated for the things that you used to be motivated by and maybe lost a little bit along the way. Or it can be a wake-up call that you're in a setback and you need to start planning again the stage for your next chapter.
So if people want to hear you speak, you had a viral TEDx speech. Is that on YouTube or is that somewhere?
It's on TED.com. It's on YouTube. I mean, if you just look Amy Shoenthal TED Talk or Setback, Set the Stage for Reinvention, you will find it. It went everywhere. It was just like a little TEDx talk I did last April. And then I get emails every day from people who say they are just discovering it, and they thought I was just speaking to them personally because it just felt like their own experience, which just goes to show you how universal the setback cycle is.
I love it. Become fearless and focused in pursuit of your dreams. In my book, Fearless, The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success, now available in paperback, I share personal stories and practical advice I've learned along the way in pursuit of my own, in fashion world and in my personal life. I talk about how persistence and courage have been the keys to my success. I share my journey of building a company and the challenges I've faced along the way. By refusing to give up and constantly stepping out of my comfort zone, I was able to break through the unspoken rules that have held women back for far too long. My hope through writing this book is to encourage you to face your own fears and take risks when going for your own goals. Fearlessness is a choice, and we all have the power to make it. The book is now available in paperback, including updated content and a new bonus chapter. Is there a story from the book in one of your interviews that you feel like you can, without giving too much away, or maybe just one of the stories of like, this person experienced this and this is what happened, that stuck out to you?
I feel like I'm picturing Norma Kamali's story, maybe because I'm in like a fashion headspace talking to you, but like her story, and also because her story is well known. If anyone's, listened to her How I Built This episode or read any of her books, it's a great example of going through the setback cycle and emerging like in the most successful way possible. So when she started out in the 60s, she had a little shop, called Norma Kamali, but she let her husband run the finances of it. And he was going out and partying, and she was kind of staying home. And then there was like some infidelity. And one of the women who he was cheating on her with came into her store one day, started talking to her in like a sort of confrontational way. They went in the back to her workroom. And as this confrontation was happening, the ceiling above her workstation just fell in the middle of them. Nobody got hurt, but the ceiling just fell. And she was like, when the ceiling fell down, it was just, if there was ever a sign to leave, it was that. And so I think she had $97 to her name. And she just left the entire business to him. She parted ways. She moved into her own apartment. She had nothing but a mattress. And she just started over with nothing because she's Norma Kamali. And she had no idea what to do. And then I think there was a reporter doing a story on her. And she said, what, like, you have left your company. You have nothing to your name. Like, what do you need? And she said, I need a sewing machine. And this woman like found a space for her to use a sewing machine. And she just started asking for help. She rebuilt her company and then she renamed it OMO, Norma Kamali, On My Own. And she rebuilt it, and that is the billion-dollar global fashion brand that you know today. I mean,
wow.
That to me is just like the epitome of, it's a much more dramatic setback than some of the others, but it really perfectly fits through the cycle.
Wow. I love that. Well, I think the book is fantastic. I read it before we met. So I'm excited for those tuning in to buy it, read it, watch the viral TED Talk, hire Amy for her when you are about to fire a lot of people, or for the people left. Oh, wait, I can't forget. Is there a piece of advice you want to leave my listeners with that you either learned the hard way or someone gave to you that was helpful?
If you are going through a setback, think back to a setback you've been through before, and remember that if you got through that, you will absolutely get through this. And know that you are not alone and you are in community, and just ask for help if you need it.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to thank you guys for listening to today's episode. I also want to ask you to rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts. I know it's a pain in the butt, but it actually helps with search and algorithms. So if you love this podcast, it is an easy way to get it more visible and out there. I also want you to follow me on Instagram at Rebecca Minkoff, at RM Superwomen, and be sure to check out my book, Fearless, The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success. Thank you again, and you will hear from me next week.